No mai, haere mai, tēnā koutou katoa, and welcome to the latest Sustainable Business Network webinar. This week we are focusing on the Climate Action Toolbox, the second in our series of webinars where we're going into a bit more detail about the Climate Action Toolbox that was launched at the end of March. So my name's Phil Jones. I work at the Sustainable Business Network, and I'm also joined by Holly. Say hello, Holly.
Kia ora, everyone. Yes, my name's Holly, and I've been working on the development of the Climate Action Toolbox as well with Phil.
So no mai hoki mai to those who joined last week. Last week we had the webinar on the moving people area of the toolbox. This week we're focusing on office operations. Yeah, just to say, as I mentioned, the toolbox was launched 7 weeks ago. We've had some really good usage of the toolbox to date, with getting close to 10,000 visitors to the tool. So really promising in terms of people's use and engagement with it and completion of the assessment. Yeah, the toolbox has been developed on the, it's available on the business.govt.nz platform, which is a government platform that is managed by MB, and basically it's a platform for tools and resources for smaller businesses. So really good that we've got this climate action tool on that platform to get the sort of normalization of the idea of businesses taking climate action. It wouldn't have been possible without the support of a number of funding partners. So quickly mention those. We've had support from EECA, the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Authority, Waka Kotahi, New Zealand Transport Agency, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, as well as really importantly contributions from some of the large corporates, BNZ and Meridian Energy. So thanks very much to all of those organisations for their support in providing this free toolbox. And also a shout out to DNA, who helped with the design and build of the toolbox. And of course, major thanks to the team at business.govt.nz, who we worked very closely with during the development. So as I say, this is the second in a series of 5 webinars, each focusing on a different part of the toolbox. So this week, as I say, we'll be focusing on office operations. Really delighted that we will have Jenny Carter from SAW Prints joining us later. SAW have been real leading light in terms of businesses taking climate action. So thanks to Jenny, and we'll introduce Jenny in a little while. So Holly, probably over to you to kind of give a bit more background in terms of the toolbox.
Awesome, cool, thanks Phil. So we have created a short explainer video. So we'll share that now to give you a bit of a background before we dive into office operations soon.
The impacts of climate change are being felt everywhere. It's time for urgent action. And that's why we've come together and created something to help Kiwi businesses to get started. It's called the Climate Action Toolbox. The Toolbox is a free and simple to use self-assessment tool, and you'll find it on the award-winning business.govt.nz platform. The Toolbox focuses on key areas to help reduce your carbon footprint, whether you're in an office, factory, or out and about, how you move people and goods, and how your products are designed and made. You'll get tailored advice based on your business. Explore actions with simple step-by-step guides and learn where you can make the most impact. Shortlist your favourite ideas and save your plan so you can come back later. And be motivated by what other businesses, just like yours, are already doing. There are some great benefits to taking climate action. Sure, you'll probably sleep better, but you could also save money, boost your sales and reputation, attract and keep staff, and inspire other businesses to be more sustainable. Be part of the team. Start taking climate action today. Together, we can make a difference.
Fantastic. So yes, as mentioned in that video, a bit of background and why we developed the Toolbox. So we did some research at about, but also the opportunities for smaller businesses to engage in taking climate action. So this was qualitative research and confirmed our thoughts on what is going on. So what we found out was that many small businesses are time poor, have a lack of funds, and the lack of knowledge as well. So we wanted to develop something that could really kickstart businesses on their journey. And for those that had already explored, where to start, it was often quite a confusing landscape. So yeah, it's designed for smaller businesses, but can also be used by larger businesses as well. And it's designed to be a self-serve experience. So you can go on, plug in some information about your business, and it's going to come up with your own personalized climate action plan. It's obviously free, and we're very happy for it to be shared far and wide. We want as many people using this as possible. So yeah, feel free to share it with your suppliers and customers as well. So the plan for today, as Phil said, we are looking at office operations. Many of us obviously work in an office. You may be in one now, or you may be at home, like myself and Phil. But hopefully the information we talk about is relevant for both home and office environment. So we want this session to be as interactive as possible. So we've got a number of polls for you guys to do, so we can sort of gauge where you guys are at. As well as obviously the Q&A function, which is at the bottom of the screen. So feel free to, if questions come to mind, pop them in there whenever. We'll either answer them throughout as we go, or we've got some time for a Q&A at the end. So yeah, we've got Jenny joining us, which is very exciting. I love Jenny's story. They've been working on climate action for many, many years now, and they've sort of seen some awesome benefits, both cost savings and emissions reductions. So we'll be hearing from her soon. But yeah, we'll kick it off with a poll. For those of you that joined us last week, we did ask this question as well, but we're keen to sort of get an understanding of who has visited the Toolbox, and if you have, how far along you've got. So yeah, feel free to plug in your answer. Have you checked it out? Have you gone as far as the landing page, or have you gone into your action plan and started developing that up a little bit? And then in terms of what was identified as, your focus areas, was that moving people, office operations, moving goods, site operations, or designing products? So I'll give you still some answers coming in, so I'll just give you a bit more time there.
It's always interesting seeing who's how it's being used, isn't it?
Absolutely. So I might shut that off now and share the results with you guys. So over 50 of you have checked out the landing page. That's good, with about an extra 20% going a bit further. So hopefully after today, you'll have a more of a feel of how you can explore those actions and get started on the action plan. In terms of the high priority areas, it's great that a third of you have office ops as your main one. So hopefully this webinar will be useful. And then the next coming in second was moving people. So as said, we focused on that last week. So if you want to check out the event recording, it is available on the SBN website as well as YouTube. So feel free to check that out. Cool. All right, Phil, over to you.
Right, great. So what thought would be useful to just a bit of background in terms of the big picture of what we do in our offices and how it might impact our overall carbon footprint. Last week with moving people, I mentioned that getting over 20% of New Zealand's carbon emissions are from the transport sector, and most of that is from road transport, and a large proportion of that is cars and trucks. It's not as easy to kind of give a definitive figure for what we do in our offices. But predominantly the impacts from our office operations are mainly in electricity use, but obviously also some of the waste that we generate that then gets sent to landfills. And some offices, maybe older or larger offices, may have fossil fuel powered heating of water or their space. But that is relatively relatively rare. So it's another important part of obviously what we do in our offices, or the offices themselves, are actually the emissions associated with the building of the offices. What's called the embodied emissions, the energy that goes into the concrete or the steel or whatever it might be. But obviously also the embodied emissions in the fixtures and fittings within our offices, the equipment we use. So that's an important part of it. And there have been some studies that have kind of tried to estimate some of those figures. So in terms of, it makes it very difficult to kind of provide a figure on, the impact in terms of emissions. What we do know is that about 5% of our total emissions is from electricity use, and about 20% of that electricity use is in commercial buildings. Obviously, offices are a major part of that area. So that comes to kind of, around about 1%, which doesn't sound a lot, but it is really important that we think about what we do in our offices as a way of reducing, carbon footprint. So, it's easy to take action. Many of us work in offices, so we can all play our part. And the thing about this challenge is every little action does help. We need, obviously, the major things to be sorted out in terms of policies and incentives, but we can all do our bit in our offices. And the other key thing at the moment, particularly, is you may have read in the news in terms of, at the moment, our hydro lakes are very low. So we're getting a lot less of our power from hydro generation, and a lot more of it from fossil fuel powered generation, and particularly use of coal. So what I've got here, we'll just bring up another poll. We like our polls here. So let's choose a next one. Here we go. Make sure I can do this. So this is asking about the current level of renewable electricity in New Zealand. Have a go at estimating, guessing what that is. So this is current rather than what it might have been on an annual basis in the last few years. Great, lots of responses. Okay, hopefully if I end polling, you will then see. I'll share results. Here we go. Interesting. So the answer is the second one. At the moment, although typically in recent years, the percentage has been around about 85%, just a bit under 85%. Presently, given the hydro lake situation, we're actually tracking just a bit under 75. So it's dropped 10%. So quite a significant reduction. So a good reason for us to be very mindful of the electricity we use, particularly at the moment, and particularly at peak times as well. The other thing to briefly mention, and I'm sure Jenny will come and we can talk more about this, but in terms of the profile of energy or electricity use within our offices, I'm going to bring up another poll here, which is about, what are the main energy uses within an office. So let me do that. I want to bombard you with all of these polls, but let's get the next one up. Right, here we go. So in a typical office, what are the three main energy users? Hopefully you're seeing that. Yes, you are. Good. Still some more coming in. Lots of answers. Well, okay. I think nearly there. Everyone had their say. I think I'll end it now. It's pretty close. Yeah, it's interesting, but it's the second one. It's the lighting, space heating and cooling, and plug loads. In our homes, it's the first one, generally. Sorry, it's the last one in our homes. But in our offices, water heating plays less of a role, and lighting plays a proportionately larger role. So hopefully that's of interest. That data was from a big study that was done by the Building Research Association of New Zealand quite a few years ago, but it's still very valid now. Very in-depth piece of research. Wonderful. I think that was me there, Holly. Do you want to now, show the tool?
Yeah, awesome. So now we're going to dive into the tool and look at some of the key themes under office operations, and then explore some of the actions within those themes. So I'm going to share my screen. So hopefully you can see the landing page now, and this is the home page. So like the poll suggested, a lot of you have already seen this, which is great. So this just gives some good background information about why climate action is important. Sort of the 5 key impact areas that we're going into throughout these webinar series. And then our partners down here, funding partners, and then case studies as well. So yeah, definitely recommend you having a look at these. So the main call to action on the toolbox is to get started by doing the self-assessment. So as you can see, I've already plugged in some answers. So our business activity mostly takes place in an office, which is why we're here today. And I've just sort of answered these as I see appropriate, but have a go and a play around here as well. And then we go take me to my climate actions. And you'll see that office operations has come up as number 1. So, and then it asks a filter. So for this one, it's we do or don't own our office premises. So obviously if you lease your building, your control may be a little bit more reduced than if you were to own it. So I'm just going to keep that. And then you'll see under office operations, we have 5 key themes: energy management, space heating and cooling, lighting, appliances and equipment. So that's the plug loads that Phil was talking about earlier, as well as office supplies and waste. So I'm going to just jump into a few of these action pages. So each action has a guide. So understand your energy use. So you'll see on these the action pages, it's a step-by-step. It's not intended to be too prescriptive. And so one thing you'll see in a lot of these pages is that we have links off to external authoritative sites, and a lot of them being GenLess. So this is obviously an ECA initiative. They have heaps of really awesome information. So recommend you checking them out. We didn't want to repeat information too much that already existed. So we have throughout these tools linked off as well. So obviously with this action, you can't manage what you don't measure. So the first step is sort of understanding what your energy use is and where it's coming from. So a really good tool in this action page is the energy management journey tool. So this is taking a deeper dive and helps you identify, what you're currently managing, and then it sort of asks you to rate yourself over sort of some 6 key areas. I'm not going to go into it now, but because you do need to fill in some information, but just so you get a feel for what it looks like and where you can find it, it's definitely worth checking out there, and it will give you some recommendations. The next action is plan to reduce your energy use. So once you know where your levels are at, it's about setting a target and a goal for reduction, and then sort of coming up with some good ideas on where you can make those reductions. So step 3 is really good for those people wanting to get started. It lists off some good examples, switching computers off at the end of the day, installing sensors and timers so appliances are only being used when they're needed, setting the heating to the right temperature. So that's some really good ideas there, as well as another resource from SBN that dives into it a little bit further as well. A lot of these action pages also have case studies right at the bottom. So this case study is from Mark's Design. So we'll have a look at their case study. So what was interesting that they did is they were in a big warehouse space building. That was where their office was, but they were finding that it was extremely hot in the summer and cold in the winter, and their energy bill was huge. So they moved buildings, and what they've found is that with LED lights and really good heat pumps, their energy bill has reduced dramatically, and they're making the most of opening windows, letting the breeze in, and in the winter the sun is there to warm them up. So it's about making the most of what you've got and being more efficient in the design of these buildings. The next one I'm going to jump into is in space heating and cooling. So I haven't mentioned this yet actually, but a lot of these actions are sort of split into two. So the first one being, making the most of what you have currently got and being more efficient. And with the second action being, improving and upgrading to more energy efficient appliances or whatever that is. So it's about, realizing that we can all take climate action without that investment early on. It's about, maximizing your use currently, and then when you're ready to upgrade, the options are there for you to do so as well. So if we're looking at heating and cooling your spaces efficiently, you'll see, understand how your building's currently being heated, get your system working well. This is really important. So heating to run only at 20 degrees under and cooling to run only at 24 degrees and over, and nothing in between. And then, like Mark's, making sure you're maximizing doors, windows, and blinds before turning your heat pump on. And again, you'll see some great links off. And also it's worth checking out the home offices as well. Since COVID, we've been working a lot from home. So making sure staff are, setting up their home offices to be as efficiently run as possible. And again, we've got another great case study. This one is from Solar Zero. And so they talk about what I've just mentioned before, setting it at a comfy temperature and making the most of blinds, doors, and windows. Cool. The next one I'm going to go into, so there's lighting as well. So you can do lighting through sensors and timers, and then upgrading to LEDs when you're ready to do so. Jenny, I'm sure, is going to talk about LEDs later on as well. Also useful, I think, going into the appliances and equipment and using these more efficiently. So it's understanding what appliances you currently have in your office. And then a really good tool is the energy rating labels. I'm sure you've seen these before. I'm just going to jump into this. So this is what the energy rating labels look like. So obviously the more stars they have, the more energy efficient the appliance is, and therefore the more money you're going to save on running costs and power. So it's a really good way to compare what you've got and what you're potentially looking to upgrade. Another good tool by Jen Less is the Rightware for Businesses. So you can choose a product, and so you'll see that a lot of these are mainly home appliances, but if we looked at computer monitors, you can go in, look at different brands, look at the different models that you may have, and understand the sort of annual running cost of each of these different models. So really good, interesting place to compare what you've got. I hope I'm not running through this too quickly, but you'll see that there is a number of actions on that are available for you to do. But what we really encourage you to do is probably just select a couple to get started and go in there, you know, you can mark them. So you've got add to list, not relevant or completed. So if you think, oh, yes, I need to do this and I could do this, you can go edit to my list. And that action is going to be added to your climate action list at the top. And then once you've completed it, you can mark as complete with the tick function. Cool. Now I'm going to move on to office supplies and waste. So about thinking sustainably when you buy. So this is looking at reviewing, you know, what you're buying, how long it's lasting, you know, are you buying the most sustainable low carbon option? Can it be reused? Is it currently being recycled? Does it have a product stewardship scheme? So for those of you who don't know, product stewardship is about taking responsibility for the products we make, sell and buy. So product stewardship is often about, you know, once I'm done with my product, can I send it back to the business I bought it off for them to dispose of it or recycle it or repurpose it or disassemble it to really maximize the materials that were put into making it. So we're not just living in that take, make, waste linear economy. And we've got the product stewardship resource. SBN has been focusing a lot of their work in product stewardship as well as a good directory of, you know, businesses that are already incorporating this as well. As well as some case studies here. And finally, I think the last one I'll do is reducing waste in your office. So again, about minimizing what we send to landfill by reducing, recycling and reusing. It's about doing a waste audit to start with to understand what you are wasting and where your biggest, you know, what the big hotspot areas are in terms of what you're sending to landfill. Setting a goal similar to the energy, understanding your energy use action, and then, you know, coming up with some ideas on how to reduce that. So composting in your office, you know, looking at e-waste specialists and disposing of those correctly. Getting your people on board. And yeah, so hopefully that's given you a good feel of what's involved in the office operations impact area, and the sort of classifications have hopefully made it a bit easier in terms of, you know, dividing it up and understanding the different components that you can be thinking about. Yeah, so lots of case studies. It's really interesting to go in there and understand what other businesses are doing, and then yeah, be adding actions to your action plan. Cool, Phil. If I missed anything, let me know.
No, that's great, Holly. Just want to unshare.
Yep.
Cool.
There we go.
Wonderful. Yes, there is lots in there, and as Holly says, really good to just take a look. And in terms of our target audience, which is smaller businesses who haven't really done anything in this area, you know, it's a case of just getting started, as Holly says. That's really the most important thing. We want to grow the number of businesses that are taking action. And then as they take more action, it might be that then there are opportunities for them to do some more sophisticated things, which might involve, you know, practitioners who offer specific services. So we very much see this as a gateway to greater uptake. Welcome to Jenny. Jenny has been a wonderful contributor to SBN's work in across a number of years. I don't know whether I want to steal your thunder, Jenny, but won the Climate Action Leader Award at the first Climate Action Leader Award at our Sustainable Business Network Awards last year. And we were delighted that SAW did win, because they've been doing the hard yards for getting on for a decade, I think, Jenny. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Paul. Kia ora, everyone.
Cool. I maybe we'll start. I mean, let's keep this nice and fluid in terms of a discussion rather than a presentation. But one of the things that we love about your story is the big number, the 480,000 that you've saved over 10 years, because it's, you know, that often gets attention, and it's a wonderful way of engaging with more businesses, the potential not just to do good, but actually to benefit financially from that. Yeah, I mean, where did it all start? You know, what was the motivation?
Well, it probably started about 2009, 2010, our decision to become carbon neutral. We had an environmental management system in place by then, and we sort of thought, what's the next stage? We're a family business. We've been around for 100 years last year, and I think we sort of look at business not just from the financial perspective, but also from sort of the community and the environment we kind of always have. And as new information comes to hand about best practice, we've always been quite keen on looking at it and learning about it. And we started down the climate action carbon reduction journey without really knowing anything about what was involved, how much we could reduce it by, how big our footprint was. We really knew nothing. So we set ourselves a goal of reducing it by 30% over 5 years, I think, or might have been 10%, but we halved it. And we found that it was easier than we thought it would be. We made some big wins early on. And I guess the other thing that's happening out there is technology is getting better all the time. Our suppliers are creating and designing better, more energy efficient products that create less waste. So just, you know, cars are getting more fuel efficient. So some of it, the savings are coming just by the general trend towards designing of better products. But we have made a lot of changes to the way we do things here as well that have helped towards that.
Great. So obviously your business has the production side of it, the actual printing side of it, but in terms of what you've done in your offices, what are the sorts of energy efficiency improvements that you've made within your office?
Right, well, in 2011, we did get an energy audit done. We're in New North Road. We've got an old building. I think it was probably built in the 60s or 70s. The energy reviewer that came on board said our building was actually quite well designed for natural lighting and ventilation. But I think what happens is people get used to turning on lights and keeping windows shut and blinds down, and staff tended to always turn on lights and turn the aircon on. We encourage staff. I've got natural lighting in my office at the moment. I've got the blinds up. We don't really need lighting. Maybe on a gloomy winter's day, or if it's getting late in the evening, they come on. But generally, we don't have lights on in the office. That's stopped. Sometimes people might come in early and someone forgets to turn it off. So you've got to be a bit mindful of it and flick the switches off as you walk past. And same with heating. We had various air conditioning units throughout the office, but we have got windows and, you know, you can open them if it gets a bit stuffy. You know, some days, very hot summer days, we might turn the cooling on. And similarly in winter, the heaters might go on or the aircon might go on in the morning, but sort of really, you know, wear a jumper if it's a colder day. I don't have the heating on in my office hardly ever. I just kind of dress for it really. It's not that cold. Mm-hmm. That's a mindset. And we found there were some areas in the building like reception where you come in and it's a big open area that goes upstairs, and there was an aircon unit there, and the receptionist would have the heater on and all the heat would really be going upstairs. So we don't use that one. We've just got her a little oil heater which she has underneath her desk, warms her feet if she needs it. She doesn't need it on for that long. Just kind of common sense stuff like that. We had a big old zip heater in the kitchen that was continually turned on for 24 hours a day. Really didn't need it. It'd be going all weekend. It was just kind of people forgot that it was there. We had instant hot water. We've just got a little jug now. Saves a lot of energy. Yeah, just a lot of it's quite common sense really.
So in terms of that change though, how did you engage your staff to change basically?
Well, we have sort of staff forums once a month where we try and get everyone in the building together, the factory staff and the office staff, because it's a bit upstairs, downstairs at our place. And, you know, each department has a little chat about what's been going on that's of interest to everyone. And we use that as a forum for telling people about what we're doing or things that people might need reminding on, you know, recycling that's been going into the wrong bin, that kind of thing. just might be a good opportunity to just tell people, or we've got a new recycling stream that people might not be aware of. So that's a good forum. We have our staff induction covers a lot of this. So when staff come on board, they get told about what their role is and making sure that we try and achieve our carbon targets. Got a little pamphlet here, for example. We're a printing company, so we do print, but this is just like a little guide to all the different recycling streams. We've got about 12 of them, so staff get a copy of that when they join. Got posters up on the wall that remind staff about the different recycling streams. Little switches, little labels by the switches turn off, you know, like the lights, just little reminder things. Yeah, and I guess one of our values is that sustainability matters. So we do recognise someone every year who's sort of really gone the extra step and trying to follow those values for the company.
Brilliant. Just a reminder to everybody out there, please add your questions to the Q&A. Yeah, it's not just Holly and I would like to ask questions. We're very keen to hear your own as well, of Jenny and ourselves as well. So please feel free to ask questions. Yeah, interesting. It is about looking for those opportunities. I mean, we had example in our own office where we realised that in our new office, the coffee machine was on basically 24/7. So we once we realized that, you know, we reduced it to run 32 hours a week rather than whatever the 100 and whatever 68 it was running. And, you know, that saves about 1,000 kilowatt hours a year, and $200. So there's all, you know, there are very simple opportunities.
I mean, we did change our lighting. We've got a big factory too, and we did put in LED lighting in some areas. But even in my office, for example, I've got 2 fluorescent tubes that have, you know, I only really need one. Part of the room that's lit is, you know, there was sort of overlighting in some areas and even in the factory. So we actually did remove some lighting that was not necessary. Another thing we found out was that we have people that work at night, the night shift in the factory. And sort of for security, safety reasons, they used to turn the lights on because it was a bit spooky with kind of the back half of the factory in darkness, but it was kind of all or nothing. So we put in some night lights. So there's just sort of a smaller amount of lighting just for that sort of security reason. That was another thing we did. One thing that was quite interesting was we have a server room, and I guess a lot of people here may have a room where their company servers and electronic equipment is, and it had to be kept at a certain temperature, so it did have an aircon unit on it, but it was a small room and it had the sun streaming in right onto the equipment. And the energy, the person that did the energy audit sort of said, well, you know, it's heating up and making the aircon unit have to work all that much harder. So we just put in blackout over the windows, which kind of reflected the heat back out and just, you know, saved, I don't know how much, but, you know, that was quite a simple solution to fixing that problem. I mean, I think we had tinting on some windows that was sort of reducing natural light, so we removed that. That wasn't an expensive exercise.
About those, as you say, it's taking those opportunities, isn't it? It's just thinking really about what those opportunities are and involving your staff. A question through from Jacqueline. Jenny, how did the staff view the changes initially? And has this changed over time? You know, was there any resistance or?
Oh, you always got a few cynics, you know. I mean, every company with you know, we've got probably about 70 staff here in Auckland, and we've got a business down in Hamilton as well. You're always going to get the odd cynic, but I think over time, when they've seen what we've achieved with our carbon reductions, when they see that we've saved money, we pay our staff a minimum livable wage. So, you know, by saving money with these things, then you might be more able to pay your staff a minimum livable wage or invest in new technology. So I think they kind of get the picture now. And I think last year, for example, when we won the award, I mean, there was a huge amount of pride from the staff, you know, that we'd done this. So I don't think there's anyone that doubts the value of what we do anymore. And I think it's probably for younger staff coming in, it's something that they might attract them to our business. They're quite interested in it. You know, I think a lot of people want to work for a company that tries to do its bit for climate action, particularly younger ones. So I think it probably helps us attract good staff too now.
Absolutely, and including it in that sort of initiation into the workplace is obviously a good one, so they're aware of it straight from the get-go and embracing it throughout.
Yeah. Yeah, we have toolbox talks in the factory once a month, so you know, I might go down if there's been some issue with recycling not being followed, or you know, we've got some new thing that we're implementing, and that's another forum to talk to people about it. But the other thing we did was we had a plastic, we had a sort of a challenge. It was a plastic-free July a couple of years ago, and we put it out there to the staff that we were going to have an award for the best solution to reducing plastic in our business. And we got some really great ideas coming up from the staff there. And yeah, we changed a lot of things about how we package our products, and you know, things we were doing ourselves that we kind of hadn't really realised could be done in a better way.
Cool. Another question has come through in terms of, has this, you know, resulted in better relationships with some other external stakeholders for the start?
Well, certainly we have to, you know, we get asked to do print tenders quite often, and sustainability is often a ranking. It won't be the sole deciding factor, but it will be given a ranking. So that certainly helps us there. And then we have got clients who want to deal with businesses that are doing their best from a sustainable perspective, and they will choose us even, you know, that's the main reason for choosing us. So it has attracted new business as well. I think with our suppliers, we've been able to talk to them about better recycling streams and the sort of the full circle concept. I know when we decide on investing in new printing equipment, for example, the energy efficiency, the amount of waste, like paper waste, because we're printing on paper, and what they're going to do with the consumables that we can't recycle that come off those processes are sort of quite a key factor. And a lot of them are looking at better solutions. I know Coreflute, for example, is a product that we print on that's not particularly great from an environmental point of view, but our suppliers come up with a recycling stream for it now. So yeah, and they're offering it to you know, all their customers, but that was kind of came about because of pressure from customers. So.
Oh, I'm personally interested in that. I've got a store of Coreflute under the house, so.
Oh, okay. We'll drop it off at our place.
yeah. Waiting for that to be available, so that's good to hear. Another one from Jacqueline. Thank you, Jacqueline. Does your business look at its supply chain and how other businesses work in terms of sustainability and employee treatment? If not, what stands in the way of doing this?
Sustainability, yes. Employee treatment, I don't know that we do that formally, to be honest. I think most of our suppliers we've dealt with for a long, long time, and we've got quite close relationships with them. I think you generally know within your industry which are the better suppliers and which aren't. So I think we have a pretty good understanding of most of our key suppliers and the way they run their businesses. But we are just working on getting a better sort of checklist, and just actually talked yesterday about monthly, at our monthly sort of management meetings, doing sort of like an assessment, choosing which suppliers we're going to assess this month to sort of look at some of those issues, because it is a bit informal, I have to say. But yeah, I think we'd like to do more in that area. But you know, we're kind of a smaller business, like a lot of, I guess, the other people watching today. We don't always have the in-house expertise to someone devoted to doing that. So we've got to be a bit pragmatic about how we do it as well.
Absolutely, and that is one of the challenges that Holly referred to earlier in terms of just the time that smaller businesses have for this. It does need some help, which is obviously one of the prime drivers for the Toolbox, trying to make it easier to get started. You own your premises?
No.
Oh, you don't?
No,
okay.
we don't. No.
So any things you've wanted to do, you've had to talk to your landlord about, or?
Yes, I mean, our landlord has been very good with, I know a few years ago the roof needed to be redone, it was leaking. And when we spoke to them, they said they were going to be putting a new roof on. And this is the roof of the factory, which doesn't have, it's just straight, you look up and there's metal, there's no lining underneath. It's possibly if we're getting a new building now or moving to a new building, we'd look for one that had better sort of ways of monitoring temperature in the factory, because it can get quite hot and it can get quite cold, but it is what it is and we have to do the best with it. But we were recommended, and this came about from the energy audit too, to get reflective paint on the roof so that it didn't take in as much heat. And also they agreed to put in some clear light panels in certain areas to let more natural lighting in the areas where we needed it. So it just meant during the day we didn't have to use as much artificial lighting in the factory, and it also meant that it didn't get quite as hot in summer. So they were very good on that front. But other than that, really putting in, we've kind of managed most of the other stuff around air cons and so on ourselves.
Cool. You have talked about the obviously cost savings from doing some of this stuff, but have you, experienced any other benefits along the way?
Well, obviously reputation, your company's reputation, and the ability to attract new business. I think it just gives the company quite a sense of pride that we've managed to do it. And I think the staff appreciate it as well. It makes them quite proud, I think. So the cost saving thing is, I'm an accountant by background, so I kind of measure a lot of stuff, and basically those savings would come about by looking, if we were using energy, consuming as much, creating as much waste, using as much fuel as we were when we started based on our number of staff and turnover, what would it be now? And that's where these savings have come about. So it's been quite amazing how things have reduced.
Awesome.
Wonderful. A good way to finish, I think. Thank you again, Jenny.
You're welcome.
Very much for again being available to share your story. We really appreciate it. Holly, do you want to?
Cool. Yes, wrap it up. So yes, thanks, Jenny, and thank you everyone who has attended. As we mentioned, this is the second webinar of our 5-part series. So these are happening every Thursday lunchtime between 12 and 12:45. Next week, we are looking at moving goods. So if moving goods is a big part of your business and what you do, definitely recommend coming along to that as well. So in terms of the Toolbox, as said, please feel free to share this. Share it on social media, share it to your suppliers or your customers. We're keen to get it out there. We are also planning on doing a series of in-person workshops. These could either be sector specific or region based in a region. So this will be taking an even deeper dive into the Toolbox, developing personalized action plans and answering any questions face to face. So if you are interested in hosting one of those and us hosting one of those in your region or for your sector, please get in touch with Phil and I, and we can arrange that. And then finally, our annual awards are open. So these have been going for nearly 20 years, and it sort of is an awesome way for, if you've been working on some sustainability stuff or climate action stuff for a while, it's an awesome way to be recognised for all your hard efforts and the impact you have made. So for climate action in particular, we have the Climate Action Leader, which Jenny and Sawprint were awarded last year. and the Climate Action Innovator as well. So yeah, these are open. The first stage is relatively simple, so it shouldn't take you too long. So yeah, definitely recommend having a look at that and seeing if you're interested. And if you've got any further questions, email our events manager, Lauren, at sustainable.org.nz. So yeah, thank you. We hope you've found today useful. I really enjoyed it, diving into the toolbox and hearing from Jenny. And hopefully we will see you all again next week as we look into moving goods. Ka kite.
No.
Thanks, guys.